G'day everybody, we're back with another live comic review. This is Perfect 10 from Genuine Comics by Brink Pow Rodrix and Daniel Rodriguez. This book immediately grabbed my interest as soon as I saw it on Twitter. I don't do a lot of other social media. I reckon probably 9 out of 10 books that I back I find out about through Twitter, so if you don't have your book on Twitter, you're probably losing a fair amount of potential business. I remember one big creator saying something, like less than 10% of all of his referrals to his Indiegogo come through Twitter. Aside from your social media, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook, I don't know how else you're going to get that information out there. Twitter is definitely the most effective way for me to find new books. So as soon as I saw this book, I was interested. Classic, I want to say 90s style, but it's more refined than 90s styles artwork. But what it does have that's 90s style is a woman looking like a woman. She's curvy, she's feminine, she's athletic, she's sexy, all the stuff that we're just not seeing these days in the mainstream comics. That's something that was a real standard in the 90s. The women were drawn very curvy, very athletic. Another thing I think that helps this book, and you can see it right here in the cover artwork, aside from a well-drawn image with good colouring, is the colour scheme itself. The whole thing has got this sort of gold, orange, cyan, blue colour scheme. Orange and blue are opposite colours and they're really effective together, and you throw in the crispness of the white and the whole thing is very, very eye-catching. I can imagine seeing this cover on the shelf and immediately your eye being drawn to it with the large amount of white space in the background, the blue and the orange in the foreground. Even the purple trade dress is a good choice. So that's the sort of cover I'd look at on the comic book store shelf if my local comic book store hadn't been shut down because of poor sales caused by the big two pushing their political agendas. Sorry, that's my hang-up. I'll get over it one day. You see this on the shelf of your comic book store, your eyes drawn to it. I'm sure I'd look at this and think, is it probably another cheesecake book, probably another good girl / bad girl book, but I'd pick it up and I'd have a flip through it. If the artwork was decent and the action was decent and the character designs were good, it's something I would consider buying. So this cover definitely does the job that it's supposed to do. It gets me looking at it, it gets me thinking twice about it, gets me taking it down off the shelf and having a flip through. Just like seeing these images, this character and this artwork on Twitter made me stop, made me click on the post, made me follow through, read a bit of information about it, read a bit of information about the creator and decide, yeah, this is something I want to back. Reminds me of stuff like Fathom, like superheroines that weren't quite superheroines, Witchblade, that sort of stuff. There's superpowers and there's high advanced technology and fantastical stuff, but it's not necessarily straight up spandex. And it's got that sort of, Danger Girl, that sort of gives me a Danger Girl vibe, sort of late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. And that's a great era. A lot of good stuff come out about that. And I suppose a lot of us probably wax lyrical about it and laud it and hold it up as an example of what to do, because it's the forerunner before all the SJW stuff got into it and the heroes were taken off the fans and turned and changed and broken in ways that, frankly, some people, myself included, believe some heroes are irreparable now. There were shades of the Resident Evil movie here with your athletic, I want to say, female main character waking up naked in some sort of laboratory, getting Mila Jovovich vibes in that last scene in the first Resident Evil movie. And this is a great way to open your book. We're not going to pretend this book is anything that it isn't. A big selling point, a big part of its appeal is sex appeal. I mean, sex sells. That's been true since the dawn of time. It's not going to change no matter what the Harridans, the Puritans and the Karens want to say. Guys like pretty girls, guys like big boobs, guys like curves. And if you put those things in your book, you will find an audience. The rest of the quality of the book determines the rest of the audience you're going to get, but you can be pretty much assured that if you have some pretty girls drawn well, you're going to find at least some sort of consistent audience. Thrown right in the middle of the action. What? Where am I? No time to explain. You need to come with me immediately. So immediately twigged to the idea there's something going on. There's some issue. There's some problem. The look on the scientist's face says he shouldn't be doing this. He's trying to break her out or sneak her out or free her. Or maybe there's something else going on. He needs to get her out safely or she needs to respond to. There's some clever placing of the mist and the cables there to obscure the details that I'm sure many viewers would rather actually see. These guys could probably get away with doing a uncensored version, much like the Rags team does with their zombie book. I'll admit that I paid the extra $2 or whatever it was to get the uncensored version. I don't see a point in paying for censored art. I mean, if you feel like you're getting your money's worth of Pretty Naked Girls already, but then you see something like this and you think, I'm sure there's a Japanese comic book writer, what's his name? Akira Yoshida, I think it is, and he probably needs to see stuff like this and say, hey, this is how you make and sell comic books. Pretty girl, boom, this bad MFer comes bursting in through the roof. It reminds me of a bit of Battle Beast from Invincible, which is a fantastic looking character. You've got big cyber legs, he's bright red so he stands out, the glowing eyes, everything about this just, if I'd pick this book up, I flip from one page, second page, saw this, at this point I'd already be like, yeah, I'm picking this book up, I'm going to buy this book. What is this, $4 or $5? I'm going to buy this book. That's 4 or 5 Australian dollars, so it's like 45 cents to you Americans. So we've got some nice Spider-Man sort of action here, leaping around, jumping around. The glow effect on that electricity is pretty good. I like that. Lots of speed lines, getting a bit of a, I don't want to say anime, but it's definitely like a Ryan Otley. I think these guys have got some Ryan Otley influence, whether they know it or not, or maybe they're both influenced by the same people. I like the sparks from where old mate, the Red Wolf, is punching a hole in the ground. The sparks that fly up from that is really good. And then notice behind it you've got some spattering as well. And then it transitions from white where he impacts through to yellow, through to orange, and through like brown, purples, blue, grey up the top. That's a nice transition in the background there. It brings all the focus down to the point of impact. And then you've got the highlights of where the energy or the electricity or the fire from the impact is reflecting on the wolf itself. Don't underestimate the importance of a good colourist. Don't underestimate the importance of a good letter. A good colorist can make or break a book. A good colorist can make a book. I don't think a bad colorist can break a book. You see some coloring jobs, it looks like they're hitting up the burn and the dodge tool, and that's the only job, that's the only tool they've got, that's the only trick they've got, and nothing makes a book look less professional, I think, than bad coloring and bad lettering. And you get the purple contrasting working against the yellow, like purple and yellow are opposite colours, so they've deliberately chosen a different background colour for this bottom panel to set it apart from the other panels to show it is the climax, it's the culmination of this little bit of action. It's just fantastic work all around. Great sound effect, looks good. It doesn't look like your standard $25 Blambot pack. There's a lot to like here. They're doing everything right so far. I'm only 3 pages in. Colouring on this is so spot on. I can hear the sparks from the broken wires. I can hear the crackle of the fire. I can hear the whoosh of the smoke and the hiss of escaping coolants. I mean, it makes all those things happen in your head whether you realise it or not. Is anybody else like that? Is anybody else reading this and they're hearing like the spark and the crackle from these loose wires and the fire in the room as they run past it? You hear all that stuff because the colouring puts you, we've all watch movies and shows that have got these sort of things in it, so this sort of colouring links back to that and makes you think of these things. The scientist reiterates there's no time to explain. He's trying to get her somewhere. You can assume that he wants to get her out of there. She doesn't know why they're trying to be killed. She seems to have reacted on instinct when she fought the Red Wolf creature. She looks in and sees a very fit, hairless man with strategic covering up who's being killed. A reader could easily assume that he's a male counterpart to her. So is it like some sort of perfect human Adam and Eve type project? Are they related? Are they the male and female versions of the same DNA grown separate and just given Y and X chromosomes as is appropriate? I saw this panel here with the bad guys. Fantastic. Everything about this, the last couple of pages and this page, that skull dude there, that was a great design. Everything's inset so you can see the glowing radiation. A real atomic skull vibe, but it's spot on. And then the sexy Emma Frost type woman at the side, and the faceless, scary Murmur Crow bondage lass on the other side. These designs are fantastic. And then you're using a lot of tertiary colours and secondary colours, using greens and purples, and even light blues give you that cold ice sort of feeling. So by using those tertiary colours and those cooler off primary colours, it gives them a villainous vibe. Heroes tend to have bright primary colours, and villains tend to have, green and purple's classic villain colours. Lex Luthor's armour, Joker, his whole colour scheme is green and purple. There's a bunch of other ones if you care to look into it. There's a not a science so much, but maybe an art to the conventions of choosing colours for your characters. And these guys are definitely following those conventions, giving us those visual cues so you know who's good, who's bad. And then immediately they turn around and just fry some guy. And there's a great bit here where in the last panel of this page, the off panel, somebody goes, "No, please, I'm just a geneticist." And he gets fried, and then the bad guy says, "Now you're a geneticist exposed to a lethal dose of radioactivity." That made me chuckle. And he's called Chernobyl, which makes sense, it's appropriate. The creators do a really good job of giving you information as you go and making it feel natural. All the characters refer to each other by their name. So, a second ago she's referring to the big guy as Chernobyl. Now you know that's his name. The skull and the green and the radioactive symbol wasn't enough. His name's Chernobyl. You know everything you need to know about this guy right now. And whether he's got some tragic past, or he's a victim of some experiment, or he's got some little Susie at home, little girl waiting for him to bring home money from his murking work, that stuff's superfluous. For the purpose of the story, you got everything you need to know. He's big, he's bad, he's green, he's radioactive, his name's Chernobyl, done. He's a complete character now. That's all I need to enjoy the story. He mercilessly kills a guy, so I know his motivations and I know his morality, and it all happened within about 3 panels. You have the big panel for a great reveal, you have a panel of him killing someone, and then you have somebody referring to him by his name. That's all you need. These guys masterfully hitting all the beats and points that a comic needs. A first issue in particular to get you interested, to get you up to date on the backstory of the world. The guards get attacked by glowing webs or lashes or threads, and the scientist shuts the door, leaving them in there, and she says we have to help them, and he says they're as good as dead already, and it's important that the woman survives above all else. So here when they're seeing that same thing again, you've got a panel to introduce the visual of the character. You're seeing how the powers work. She uses these threads to control people's minds, to control their bodies. So even while the guys are protesting, she forces them to turn around and shoot each other, to rise and shoot each other with their guns. And then Chernobyl complains that female villain with the glowing threads made the soldiers kill each other by shooting them in the head, so there's nothing left for the iris scanner. So he said, nothing left of their heads. Did you not notice the iris scanner next to the door, Busybody? So he calls her by name, and now we know that she's called Busybody. And then she says, don't be a party pooper, Chernobyl. We have Porcelain to help us out. So now we know the other character's called Porcelain. And Busybody says, not even the thickest door can withstand her ability to weaken structures. These guys are just doing such a great job. You've got Chernobyl, big radioactive dude. You've got Busybody using these threads, these marionette strings to control people. Fantastic designs, fantastic colours. And then you've got Porcelain, whose ability is to weaken structures by touching it and making things, yes, as fragile as porcelain. And then she's covered up with these straps like us to hold her body together, and she's got this mask covering her face, and probably the hair's probably a wig. She's probably some sort of broken, damaged, shattered creature that's being held, person that's being held together by all this stuff. Her own powers turned on her, or grown out of control, and it's caused her. There's so much you could do with this. These guys really know what they're doing. These guys that have read a lot of comics and know a lot of comics. You couldn't just be a writer in some other industry or some other, genre, some other media, and go, yeah, I'm going to write a comic, and turn around and write a comic as good as this. It doesn't happen. You have to know comics to write a comic as good as this. I'm really, really happy I backed this. If you guys get a chance to listen to this, you guys have got a backer for life. You keep putting them out, I'll keep paying money for it. So Porcelain's weakening the door. The scientist gives female a very, very tight jumpsuit, and he says it's called skirmish, which is just skirmish. It's mesh that you wear during a skirmish. It protects you. It's skirmish. I mean, that's fantastic. He says it's extremely resilient fabric, specially designed to accommodate and adapt to metanormal abilities. It increases your survivability. That's good to hear, but as soon as I heard skirmish, as soon as I read skirmish, I'm like, yeah, right, I know what it is. I know what it does. These guys know what they're doing. She confirms a scientist called Pratt, and her name is 10. and that she's a synthoid, and he asks what that is. He says it's a sophisticated biosynthetic metahumanoid, and she's got the strength, speed, and durability of a tenfold over a regular person. She was created, so she's not a real person. He tells her, you need to put the damn suit on and focus on the upcoming fight, as Porcelain is turning the reinforced steel doors, is breaking like glass. He says you really need to get in the game, really need to focus on the fight ahead. And then we cut to this bloke who looks like he shares at least one of my hobbies, painting miniatures, and he's told that the president wants to talk to him. Shall I put her through? So the president's on hold for him, not the other way around. And he asks what the status is at the bunker, and then you get this screenshot of 8 metanormals, metahumans. So meta being beyond, normal being normal, so people that are beyond normal. So I've heard somewhere that DC actually has a copyright on metahuman, which sucks if they do, because that means I'm going to have to go back and change metahuman. If anybody, all my scripts, if anybody knows, if anybody watches this, if anybody knows that DC actually has copyright on metahuman, can you let me know? I'll have to come up with a different name. I see other people coming up with names. I don't really like many of them, but metanormal is, again, it's spot on. I might have to ask these dudes if they mind if I use metanormal in my books instead of metahuman, if I'm not allowed to use metahuman. So here we go. So you got this screenshot of 8 metanormals. We've seen 5 of them so far. You've got this rose-looking character, the poison ivy sort of thing happening maybe. And down the bottom you've got a pair of Luke Cages. They look like they're probably brothers, so maybe there's some sort of symbiotic relationship. They get stronger when they're closer, they get weaker when they're further apart. We'll find out. And then you've also got 10 in the corner there. Her name's 10, so we can assume that she's the 10th version, the 10th iteration, or the 10th model, or the 10th in line, number 10. I wonder if these miniatures that he's painting here are heroes that already exist in this world, rather than ones he's made up himself. If so, this is a little bit of foreshadowing, showing us these characters that exist, that are out there, that we might run into as the story progresses. So the only staff member that's alive is the scientist, Dr. Pratt, and then this guy here, whose name is Max, takes a call from the president. We cut back to the facility. So you get a nice little bit of jumping around, and that lets you. So here you've got her about to put the suit on and get some weapons and fight back. It's well drawn, this bloke's face here. It's good art, good colouring. Looks like a black version of me, I think. So she's getting the suit on, and then you have this one page to cut away to show there's more happening. There's stuff happening behind the scenes. Other people are aware of this. The president's aware of this. There's other metanormals that we will come into contact with and meet during the story. And then we cut back to her fully suited, geared up, ready to go. So while I'm sure some people would appreciate a whole page of her getting changed, putting clothes on, it worked wonders in Suicide Squad. It's just a nice little way to jump away, add some more story, jump back, ready to go for the action. It doesn't show us that the superfluous stuff. So the bad guys have made their way through thanks to Porcelain's structure weakening power. 10 comes out, guns are blazing. Chernobyl tanking most of the blast. Busybody gets hit. So you got this energy blast. It says the guns are set to stun, and 10 says that she's not into killing. And then she gets hit by Chernobyl. He brings up an interesting point. He says, why did they give you the ability to feel pain? He taunts her, saying they didn't even give you a proper name. They called you 10. You're a product. You're a weapon. You're off an assembly line. He goes, and the reason that you can't remember anything is because they wipe your memory after every mission. And you and your kind killed dozens of my kind. I think he probably means other metanormals, other superhumans, which is why these guys are striking back. So even though they're villains, some people might even see them portrayed as rebels fighting back against a kind of tyranny, a kind of genocide. Chernobyl tells us that his armour is made of chroidium and nothing can put a dent in it. And then he says he's going to find out how much radiation it takes to kill a synthoid. And then the doctor applies magnetic surge mine. Yep. So it creates a huge magnetic pulse that pulls all sorts of metallic towards Chernobyl, which hinders him too much to fight back. And he tells the plant being that we saw in the other picture, other scene with Max, I need you and the Bruise brothers at the exit. So he's telling the other characters to get between 10 and the exit to stop them from escaping. But then he also, by using their names, he tells us, he could have just said, hey, you guys go stand between them and the exit. But instead he uses their names. So now we're equipped with that knowledge. We can go into the next scene knowing exactly who these characters are. 10's burdened with the knowledge that she's killed a bunch of people and that her memory's been wiped over and over again. She attacks the scientist, saying, how dare you make those decisions for me, you're playing God, all that. The scientist apologises, said that he never wanted this, and she accuses him of only trying to save her because she's the only one left, like he's only putting himself in danger because she's so valuable as a weapon, as a killing tool. And the scientist has a flashback explaining how his wife was sick. He was trying to find a way to cure her disease when Max offers financial support and new labs and scientists, top-level scientists, to help further Virgil's research. And they built his sick wife a new body, but it took too long and she passed. And he wasn't paying attention to what was happening in the lab anymore. He took some time off, and when he come back, they'd perfected his process, and they'd built themselves a whole line of superhuman, perfect human bodies. He thought it was wrong. He thought it was playing God. He realised now that he probably shouldn't have started the process at all. And Max says, look, Virgil, we need you back on the program. It's called the Perfection Program. It's got strains of Captain America making perfect, peak-level humans. The perfect man. It's revealed that Division M, run by Max Magenta, is a global agency that monitors and studies all metanormal activities, and the Perfection Program is used to keep them in line with lethal methods, it seems. And it also says that metanormal criminals are sentenced to the underwater prison known as Atlantis, and there's a Universal Human Rights Act that dictates how metanormal criminals are treated. So there's a bit of world building here, and obviously they've sat down and thought about what it means to have superhumans in your world, in a modern world, and how would the world and how would government legislate to react to that. Virgil says he wants to make things right. 10 says that she's sorry, and he says, you're sorry, why would you be sorry? But she says she's sorry about his wife. So she's showing a huge amount of empathy for someone who's been built, designed and grown to be a superhuman assassin and killer. The Bruise Brothers turn up with Stork. Perfect 10's an advanced class in crisp dialogue. They don't, these guys don't put a word balloon in unless it has a purpose. One of the Bruise Brothers says, those brainiacs sure made a looker, it's too bad we'll have to kill you, implying that he'd rather do something else than kill her because she's so good looking. And then she quips, not even quips back. It's not quipping. She's exclaiming, I haven't even lived yet. As far as she is aware, as far as she can feel, she's only been alive for 10 minutes. She's only got 10 minutes worth of memory. So how unfair is it for her to be killed when she hasn't even lived yet? It's speaking to her frame of mind and what an awful situation she's in. And Stork says, we're going to paint this room with your artificial blood, assassin. So he's saying, not only am I going to kill you, not only am I going to enjoy splashing your blood around, but it's artificial blood. You're not even a real person, you're a tool. And then he calls her assassin, again sort of pointing at this whole, you've been killing our people, you've been killing metanormals, so we're almost the good guys in the situation. There's I think I might have said this before, and it's not a thought I've come up with. I've seen this thought in movie making, I've seen this thought in comic books, I've seen this thought in wrestling. Mick Foley says the same thing in his first autobiography, that the most effective bad guys are the bad guys that don't think they're bad guys. They think they're good guys. And even down in the corner here, one of the Bruise Brothers says to Virgil, both these dialogue balloons are just so on point. Watch as we destroy your creation, Einstein. It will make sense that a big bruiser like that would just refer to any big brain as Einstein. And then he says, after that, it's time to meet your own maker. Saying, hey, you've made stuff, you're a creator, you've created life, we're going to kill you and send you back to God who created all life. Absolutely just spot on dialogue. These guys absolutely know what they're doing. I'm so impressed with this book. 10 takes out Stork by kicking him in the stomach, and then she says, you should have put thorns on your stomach. Which is a good point. He's got a very vulnerable chest and stomach area. I mean, he's got thorns everywhere that a cop doesn't wear armor, right? Where they wear a bulletproof vest over their chest and stomach. That's the area that he doesn't have covered in thorns. So he's left himself really vulnerable. There's a great visual too. The big rose coming out of the top of the head, the green and red contrasting colours. Fantastic design, very striking, just pops right off the page. Virgil tells her that she can translocate any weapon from the armory to herself by using the technology in her gloves. So she kneecaps them, saves the doctor, and this top panel in the right-hand corner with all the sparks and all the death and debris and destruction. Again, I'm hearing those electrical sparks, that sharp cracking sound that you get in a movie when electricity is flowing through faulty and damaged cables. Again, you've got the orange of the sparks contrasting nicely with her cyan-coloured costume. But see how you've got bigger sparks closer to us are blurred out like they're out of focus? I mean, this is absolutely top-level colouring, and the art is so crisp and definite and specific, and the lines are so confidently placed in there. There's no sketchiness to it all. It's very defined and very much, this is exactly the edge of this character. This is exactly how much space this character takes up, which I imagine has to only help a colourist. So you've got these big sparks in front of us that are closer to us that are out of focus because we're focused on her walking towards us. Then you've got smaller sparks in between her and us, and you've got very small sparks behind her, so showing the scales changing over distance. Just absolutely fantastic colouring. You know, nice white lines, guttering, especially on a monitor, very crisp. And then you've got these thick black panels that and everything's so bright and colourful, it just pops out. I mean, this is everything that was good about the 90s. Everything the 90s did right, I'm seeing in this book. And anything that they did wrong, I'm not seeing it here. These guys have said, look, the 90s, I believe they're saying the 90s are a fantastic era of comics. Yes, they didn't do everything perfectly. Who does? Let's take the best stuff that we like from it, and the stuff that didn't maybe work so well, the stuff that was a misstep or a step out of line or a step to the side, let's leave that and let's just focus on the good stuff. And it doesn't there's no politics. There's nothing here for me to complain about. You've got a capable female character, and she's capable because of a genetic advancement. She wants to be a hero. She doesn't want to kill. She wants to get out and survive. She's angry at the crimes that have been committed against her, but she's not placing blame so much. She's just trying to stay alive. She's a survivor. Everything about this book is hitting the right beats. The Red Wolf, I think, is probably the only character whose name I haven't seen. It's possible I missed it, but I don't think so. But maybe it'll turn up later on in the book. He has her scent, and he's tracking down 10. 10 makes it outside. Got a nice Oblivion moment here, where she comes out from the entrance of the lab to this idyllic waterfall and rolling green fields, and I can hear the birds tweeting and the sun shining. You can also imagine the orchestral strains as she exits the blood and death and destruction debris and the clinical cleanliness of the laboratory out into the wild, out to nature. Max Magenta turns up in his hovercraft to pick her up. Max urges Motherboard to blow up the whole facility. She doesn't say it yet. She says that she can't summon any more weaponry to fight off the Red Wolf. And Max says, well, of course not. He destroyed the compound and everything that's in it. She kicks the wolf off. He falls into the trees. But clearly, he's strong enough that won't be the end of him. She's angry that he killed everybody in the facility, but he says there's only her and the doctor and the intruders alive, so there's no point not destroying the facility. And he tells us that most of the metanormals probably would survive the explosion anyway. All it's going to do is slow them down. She checks on Dr. Pratt, and he says, don't call me Dr. Pratt, call me Virgil. After all, we're family, and that's where the story ends. That is Perfect 10. I have to give it a 10 out of 10. That's a fantastic comic. It does everything I want comics to do, nothing I don't want it to do. It looks good, it reads well, the colouring is top-notch, the art is fantastic, it's kinetic, it's bold, it's bombastic. The storyline, the plot, the dialogue, nothing's wasted. Every balloon, every panel matters. It sets up plenty of stuff in the future. There's obviously an in-depth world with plenty of world building going on, and it's the sort of world that makes you want to know more. Reminds me of Invincible in a way. It's so colourful, it's so bright. Not necessarily positive, but just bright. Just big, bright, and bold. Bold's the word I'm looking for. And there's just so many possibilities there that makes you want to explore all aspects of it. And this is the sort of world that you think, there could be all sorts of other characters and teams going on simultaneous to this. These are the sort of comics, like Invincible did this. It built up a world that, I'm not going to say it's comparable to the Marvel Universe, for example, like it's not on that scale, but in terms of complexity and character interactions, it was like a slice of something to the scale of the Marvel Universe. And given more time and other creators working on it, I'm sure that the Invincible universe could have grown into something that would literally rival the scale of the Marvel Universe. And this Perfect 10 seems like the foundation of that same sort of thing. These guys could continue to build on this, more characters, and the independent creators have been doing this for years now. I mean, Eric Larsen's been doing it on Savage Dragon for nearly 30 years, and it's huge. The backstory and the characters, the way they interact. If these guys want to, this is another brick in the foundation of their own universe, and that's no small thing. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about Perfect 10 if you've read it. If you haven't, I urge you to go back it, even if you just get yourself a digital copy to have a look through. It's an excellent book. I'm glad I backed it, and I'll be backing every issue they put out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and remember, read more comics.